Welcome everyone back to another, I'm telling you, exciting. It's going to be a great edition of the Broker to Broker podcast. My name is Mark Summers. I am the president of AIM. Now, the gentleman that I'm about to introduce, he was one of the first people I met at one of our first events, and we've stayed in contact ever since then. Always a huge supporter of AIM, always has great insight on our industry. So I'm really excited today that I'll be interviewing a mortgage advisor for Mares Mortgage, Cubie Hernandez. Cubie, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mark. Good morning. I told a couple younger new millennials on our team. I was being interviewed by Mark Summers, and I think they thought I was talking about the Double Dare guy, and I said no, it's a different, very positive other guy that you, more positive than the OG Double Dare guy. But yeah, definitely a legend in our industry. But yeah, thanks a lot, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. And the Mark Summers Double Dare host, him and I spell the name the exact same way, and I grew up with that my entire life. And I just finally succumbed to it. And I said, "Listen, my dad lives in Orlando, Florida. He does Double Dare, but I stay up here, so I still roll with it." But no, so Cubie, once again, thanks for joining us today. You and your family have a unique business, the fact that it's business, and I want to hear your background. I want to hear how you guys got started in this at Mares Mortgage and where it's going. So just give me the whole background on your company and how you got in the industry.
I guess talking about how Cutberto Sr. got in a nutshell was, you have a young guy who him and his wife, my mom, Kimberly, met in Mexico. He's a student, he's a scientist, pretty academic guy. Mom, big into family, fall in love in Mexico. She's on vacation. She's from California. And he had a mom who we named our company after, Soledad Mares. She passed away a couple years ago, which was a tough one, but that's who we named our company after. So Mares comes from the matriarch, as we call her. We sometimes even now recently took something from another brand that said Abuela approved. So we talk about family a lot, and it goes all the way back to that. So Cutberto Sr., came to the U.S., realized with a little family, I was on the way. I was already born. Brother on the way, Christian, who I'm partners with, and you know him.
Oh yeah.
And our parents came together and they started building wealth through home ownership. My mom was actually the one who would talk a lot about it, and my dad did his first loan application for the loan officer on his own because she left the blank loan app in a rush on the desk. And this is, in the late 80s. He filled out his 1003 on his own, until this year. It was the same 1003 from 1988 until now, identical. And he filled it out perfectly. Next day, he gives it to his loan officer, and she's like, "Who helped you fill this out? Who are you working with?" And he's like, I filled this out on my own." And she's like, "Okay, I know that you're a Nobel scientist working at Scripps Institute. You're washing boats for a living." He's got a great story, washing boats in the harbor, working 2 jobs. And she's like, "I think you could probably make a little more money as a loan officer. No offense." He would just translate at night. He would do a translation for the loan officer. Her name was Sherry. Didn't turn out to be the best person. He went through the whole tough process of, a really tough overhaul of working for another broker and realizing that, they were just keeping commissions, and, he wasn't getting paid correctly, and kind of getting a little bit, like underhanded, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word. So, he got brought into the industry tough. I mean, really, really tough. And I was he had 2 kids already when he's going through all this stuff. So Mares Mortgage started from that sort of working on his own independent, then going retail, having kind of like, working for a retail guy that was great, very clean shop, and then asking the owner if he could buy the branch, and made Mares Mortgage. And this was early 90s, 1993, excuse me, 1993. So next year is 29 years in business.
Wow.
That's about as quick as I can make it. But yeah, just a really good guy. He's one of my, my brother and I say he's the best guy we know, honestly. So we love our dad.
That's awesome that you're able to work with family, and I know you guys have a strong family foundation, and everyone in the industry knows that, which is great. So, like, when you guys were growing up, did you know that you were going to work in the industry, or was it forced on you? Did you guys love it? how did that happen?
Our family was interesting because you can imagine, like, we have parents who never made excuses. If you heard all the stories that well, all the things we experienced growing up, it was like will to win, survive. I mean, a lot of stuff that um, people in our industry, leaders talk about. I mean, we're all so similar. I hear stories about other loan officers, and I admire them so much because it is a tough job every day. Like clearing loans to close is easier now, obviously, with the speed and technology. But no one's inventing, advising a client, where to get their P&Ls from. Like how to do all this, some of the complicated aspects of our job. Reading the press release from UWM telling stories about things people have done for their customers. That was how we grew up. Just hearing things that our mom and dad would do for families. We had the come up, as I call it. The like Christmases got better when I was about 9 years old, where I'm like, oh, like this Christmas felt a little different from the first 8 Christmases I've had in my life. Not that I remember them all. So, we kind of had that life. We have a baby sister that was born a couple years after that, and so no, I mean, we were just told to work hard. I was less academic. I was a little more of a like an athlete. I played water polo as a 13-year-old. I kind of found that sport a little later in life. My parents said you gotta always do sports or academics. You got to do one or the other. There's no choice. And in the summer, I would take loan applications. I would fill out lead forms to make extra money in the summer. And my feeling was my dad wouldn't make it easy, but in the summer when I would fill out lead, like potential leads, I would go through the database and I would write down what their rate was. This is old school stuff. This is
Mhm.
90s. Like write down
Oh
their
yeah.
interest rate, name, phone number, what program I'm suggesting. And at that time, I would always suggest adjustable rate mortgage because I thought, well, the rate's lower. Like just this is a 15-year-old, the maturity. And my dad would always come back and say, you can't present this. And I was like, why? It's a lower rate. And he's like, you don't get it. Like you can't present this loan option. Like this is not good for them. And I was like, okay, like not like getting it, and now, we're almost like early 2000s when I'm still, I'm 36 years old. So, these kinds of loans were existing already.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so I didn't really know why in depth as a young person, but in the summer I just knew, look, I didn't mean to work in this industry. I started in 2007, tough road, tough paving, because I joined when it was pretty much in the toilet, and I knew that it was in the toilet. Like everything was
Mhm.
all messed up. But my dad was doing right by the community. People were not losing their homes under his watch. He would do loan modifications for free. We would both do loan modifications for people for free. I remember at one point, just to make ends meet, I was getting $300. Clients would give me $300 to help them with their loan modification, like just as a thank you. They'd be like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Look, like if you want to pay me what someone pays a notary, I'll take the fee." Well, all those little notaries I was doing because I was a notary, and all those little modifications when I'd go to people's houses and they didn't qualify, I didn't realize how many seeds that was planting in my future business, and just what that has become today, where people who you would say were losers in 2008, 9, 10, and 11, helping them keep their homes, helping them turn the corner financially, and just all of what that created for us as a business today. I can't even tell you. At the time you would do it knowing that you're going to get benefits, but at the time very few people chose to do that for the consumer. So
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, you definitely were planting a ton of seeds because they bounced back. And now they're coming back to you because you did them a favor and you were good to your community, you were good to those people.
yeah, yeah, it was interesting. 2011, I can tell you something that we did tell ourselves as it relates to right now. I would tell brokers regarding just kind of how, like, coming out of COVID, I think there's like other things we're kind of experiencing, which is mental health within our industry, like mental health within our workplace, and just keeping people happy, and just helping them uh, be restored authentically, not just like take the weekend off. kind of stuff. Like we've been giving everyone restorative time off. Every person on the team, I think, like has been given like a week and a half vacation because they worked their butts off last year. No one got COVID. We worked through the whole thing. We created zones. I could tell you the whole story about how we created like safe zones so that no one could cross over other parts of the office. So if someone got COVID, if they did, they wouldn't give it to the rest of the team. Just stuff that we were doing last year, and just seeing everyone come out of it pretty stressed still, because we're actually having a bigger year this year than we did last year, which is like shocking. Like we're all kind of surprised. But now we rebuilt our systems to be faster. We rebuilt our team synergy to be a little bit better. We added people. It's a different. We've adapted, but people are not mentally that. They weren't there back in March. Just it was tough. Like people were just still like really like we had one person who lost 6 family members to COVID, not exaggerating. And so just seeing like that experience, it's just interesting. So Cutberto Sr, Christian, and I, as like co-owners, we believe that we have to restore the people who got us here. Like we got to do right by the team, and yeah, they might need more time than we expected, and they're not taking advantage. They're hard workers. I mean,
Right.
my God, they're setting records every month. What more do we want them to do? Like it's an awesome group we have. So yeah, it's just stuff like that comparing it from 2011, the comeback, to 2021, 10 years later, we really look at those 2 years. And at 2011, it was just so tough. We couldn't really make a comeback and really do that because we weren't there. We didn't have the growth yet as a team. Cudberto Sr didn't really have CEO growth yet. I was not really a sales manager type growth yet. I'm always practicing, always trying to get better. Christian wasn't really an ops guy yet. We were pretty young, obviously. Now just being able to have the same guys stick together, and then now knowing what to do in the crisis, and now how we want to come out of the ashes, of what our people are experiencing. That right now is what feels good, is that we don't have all the answers, but I feel like our experience is paying off right now.
Dude, that's awesome. I love everything you just said right there, especially the mental health, because literally probably from the middle of last year, even to this day, I still talk about mental health and how it's so important because, our industry, we beat ourselves up. We beat ourselves up so bad. Like, yes, we may get 10 clear to closes in 1 week, but we have that one file that fails and we beat ourselves up for it. And we really shouldn't. We just be honest about it. This is what happened. And then obviously you care for them because they're human beings and they're people, but at the same time, we can't beat ourselves up. You got to take time for yourself. You got to set your goals, hit your goals, and then give yourself a reward. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, yeah, you got to. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. Yeah,
Yeah.
we appreciate the whole community, though. I mean, the stories that people tell. We call it. We actually call beating ourselves up being ordinary, because like the place that type of behavior comes from is the world of being ordinary. And there's nothing wrong with being ordinary. We tell people, like, we're not making you wrong when we say we're being ordinary today. Like I recently had a conversation with a friend, personal life, with about another friend, and I was very ordinary in my conversation. That's how I would describe it, Mark. I was very ordinary, and I was beating him up about it. I was like, well, and it was just a super dysfunctional way to talk to a friend. And was it any of it false? No. But just because it's true doesn't mean you're being ordinary. Like
Right.
you're still being ordinary. Even if everything you said is true, there's an extraordinary way to deliver it. And so we always kind of like, there's a ton of stuff we talk about. Cudberto Sr. Has, his volume shift. It doesn't show up in his MMI because you don't see the stat line of, like, you look at guys in the NBA and you look at people who just choose to toe the line for the superstars, and you don't know their stats, right? Like their stats don't show up. But when you look at their plus minus when all the superstars are on the court, that's when you know that they're a part of it.
Right.
When Cudberto Sr. is not there, you don't see it in the MMI. You wouldn't see it on UWM's ranking. You wouldn't see it there. But when you look at what the team's production is when he's helping us as a team, and he's helping the mental health of the team, which is every Friday morning he sends out, one person on the team called them the letters, which I thought was very professional. Today I just heard that in our team meeting. Cutberto's letters. I thought it was like really profound because they are letters. I mean, you could save every single one, and they're like, I mean, you're like, wow, this is like, I know I'm biased a little bit, but it's like Thomas Jefferson stuff. It's like letters from Thomas Jefferson. You're like, or whoever your favorite person. Like Abraham Lincoln's letters. From the president. But I'm reading these every Tuesday, and then every Friday morning, and we have our Tuesday alignment. Tuesday alignment team meeting, and then Friday we do the weekly action plan. He came up with the weekly action plan acronym way before the Cardi B song came out, just for the record. Okay. So
I just got that.
so 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 now we do like saying like, oh, you got to do the weekly action plan. Like there's a
Right.
little bit of a millennial joke going on, but it's fun. So the point is, Cubberto Senior's got our backs. I mean, every day, and it doesn't show up, right? But that what's your plus minus when that guy's on the court, because he's on the court, and what our plus minus, our plus is we're all setting records, and the minus when he's on a vacation or on a trip is there. You're like, wow, like we feel it, as a leader. So it's Mark, I think you're like, you remind me of a guy like that, by the way. I meant that as a indirect compliment to you, Mark, honestly, just because I've seen you involved. You're a real stable person within our organization, and the stability does so much. It's like being a father to the organization. It shows up everywhere. It's like who Mark is in his personal life. I see your kids doing well, and they're happy kids, and they're just like enjoying competing. That's who you show up as everywhere, and that's what we talk about. Who you are in this community shows up everywhere else. Like it'll show up in your personal work life. It'll show up in your kids' athletic careers. It'll show up in your kids' academics. It'll show up in your dog, like how your dog's energy is when you come home. I mean, everything. So yeah, we love it.
Well, first, thank you for the kind words, and secondly, no, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right with everything you said. So, the one thing you touched base on was community, and that's what I want to dive into.
I am an extension of a lot of great people, my friends, my family, my wife. Every day, I tell her, she's my guide. There's things that you kind of realize, oh man, I could have done that a little different, and you adapt and you shift. So we're really excited that the direction of AIM is to uphold community, and
100%.
and you look at that, and that will never fail, because we're not. There was a good analogy we got in one of the letters one day, that he Cudberto Senior is kind of like a low key cool guy. He's funny. He like does these things where he's like, I got this. I kept this from a Men's Health magazine from like 2005, and I'm like, dang, dude, the OG's reading Men's Health, like, and I'm like, geez, So he has this clip, this thing he saved, like, how long? 17 years, or whatever it is, like 11. Sorry, poor math. Whatever it is, 16
Long
years
time
ago.
ago.
I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, so we read it, and it talks about, as AIM, you can't beat us if we continue to uphold one another and uphold community. Why? Because it's the very definition of upholding one another as fabric. And Cubberto Senior did this, and he goes on the Zoom call. I forget when. He's like, here's fabric. Here's fabric, right? Whatever you want to call it. Making your lattice, right, or whatever you want to refer to this as. In most organizations, it's puppets, where you have leadership and everything is down from the bottom and up from the top. So what it is that you have a puppeteer holding everyone up by strings, right? It's like, this is how it works. But in the brokers are better community, and in our community, the way we uphold one another is, you have uplifting coming from all different directions, and you have leadership starting from our leaders at Finance of America, Home Point, UWM, PRMG. You have all the leaders, the key leaders, sending us, an uplifting message, and
Right.
then it's coming right back from the community. So believe me when I tell you that if you do 1,000 good deeds, and you look at it, even every day in Arizona, great broker stewardship, you look every day what they're doing, and you look, if you do good deeds all the time, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of it. It doesn't matter if people think you're doing it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, whatever. You are upholding a community, and now guess what? That community now relies on you, and they're going to uphold you too. It goes both ways. It somewhat sounds selfish, but it's not. It's
It's not.
actually the healthy way to be. We all got to win. Like, I'm going to uphold you, and you're going to uphold me, and we're going to win together. So, and I know I just sounded like Matt on that one. So I gotta, sometimes you're like
Yeah, right.
trademark Ishbia. You're like,
But he's right, and you're right. You know, I mean, like my most favorite thing about AIM itself is, trust me, and I truly believe that we've done a lot of great things, and we're going to continue to do great things. But my favorite thing, and I talk about this every time I do a presentation, everything is the community. It's my most favorite thing because we're in this together, and we're finally realizing it now that we're in it together. And the more that we can help each other, the better we're all off going to be.
you're I don't want to add. I agree. I agree.
Done, done, done. Yes. So, okay. So, what do you? Okay. So, I know you also do a lot of stuff in your local community. Can you give me some ideas of what you do in your local community?
Yeah. Well, okay. Obviously, there's like little stuff like when we go on walks, my kids and I, we pick up trash, right? But I don't think you want to hear about those ones. I think that's a little.
It is what
um,
it is.
it is what So we always talk about that. I'm like, look, come home with a few pieces of trash. I mean, at any level, everyone can kind of. There's something you can do. Like, it's like I always say, there's something you can do to help your community. I mean, there's an awesome kid that Cutberto Sr sits on this he's actually a really great nonprofit advisor. So I'm going to put the line out there. He told me that I could actually a while back, so I'm going to do it. That if anyone in AIM organization is interested in upholding a nonprofit or kind of understanding like locally what it takes to do that, Cutberto Sr told me, hey, anyone wants to do stuff like that, I'm going to show them the fast track, kind of like how we do loan applications. Here's the
Mhm.
fastest way to just get it established, get it done, so the paperwork's out of the way, and then you can go and do the things that matter, which is build in your community. So where that comes from is that he started, I think it was about 4 years ago, his like biggest project, which was the Mares Foundation. That's something that he does. And I know you asked me what I do, and I'll tell you in a minute. But I want to share that foundation, what it's done, and what we do as a company to uphold it. Um, I think he said worldwide there's over 4,000 volunteers being given support every day, and the whole purpose of it is ocean literacy, and specifically ocean literacy is like literally what it means is just educating kids at the early stages in countries where there's not an education program for kids to learn about ocean conservation, I guess specifically. That's the mission, educating kids. And it does come from every day. In our company we have a benefit that we don't really like tell people until their kids are of college years, but we've helped tons of our customers help their kids apply for college. Recently, I mean, I remember like I was shocked that one of the kids I helped, uh, his dad called me and he's like, what do I need to do? I was like, okay, this is what you do. And he's like, well, I know you said college, but my kid's actually in the seventh grade. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, I want him to go to a private school because in my neighborhood, the school he's going to go to, I just don't have the support. I don't even know what to do to help him. He needs to be in a private school. And I'm like, man, this guy's pretty bougie. Like this kid's he's talking about putting his kid in private school, and this guy's a
Right.
pizza man. I'm thinking to myself, geez, like, come on, like set your goals a little lower, like whatever. So he came in and I showed him how to do the paperwork. We did it together, turned it in, and have the son come in. He writes an essay, and the kid blows me away. And he writes an essay about childhood obesity. And I'm like, how does a seventh grader, or excuse me, beginning of eighth grade now, how does an eighth grader have the presence of mind with parents who are basically illiterate, who grows up in a Hispanic community where he eats well every day and he can eat whatever he wants all the time? Yeah, this kid has is amazing. Like I think the dad knows what he has here. It kind of reminded me of the story that like of my dad in Mexico getting straight A's with no help. Like, just with his mother's perseverance of just giving him a safe home as safe as it can be in Mexico City. Anyways, fast forward, he got a scholarship to that private school. They were blown away by his essay and the parents' financial situation, private school locally, and then got a scholarship to University of Redlands later on. And we helped him do those college applications for multiple universities. And he chose the private school again. And not that there's not a difference. My kids go to public school. I believe in the public school system, but I also have the fortune of living in a good area, and it's different, right? Everyone's
Right.
different. Everyone's up against different circumstances. So that's one thing. Is mentorship is something I believe in, and I tell people there's no fake way to be a mentor. Um, Choosing young people who don't just have something to offer you, and also mentoring people who are different than you. And I'm clear with people. Look, I'm a pretty progressive person. I don't need to hide that with people. Like I just I lean in that way in life. But I do know that there's righteousness in being conservative too, right? Like I understand and I know that like we all have to be in this together. I know that there's goodness in all of our friends. So the one thing is that I believe in mentoring, and I go back to my university, Loyola Marymount, and I'm mentoring a lot of kids that are really privileged in the conservative community. And you know what? I need to, because my feeling is I want them to know that not everyone on this side is this way, like we all think it is in the news, or everyone on your side is a certain way. I know that's not true. I know that there's a lot of good people like us where you look at AIM and it's diverse. I
Yeah.
want it to be even more diverse. It's actually better when we're all have differences of opinions, differences in our markets. Like I don't take a knock on someone who says, "Hey, in my market, I have to be at 2.5% comp plan." And I'm like, okay, like I'm not. Who am I to judge what your comp plan is?
Right.
I'm in Orange County. My loan amounts this year, we just checked our average loan amounts almost $600,000 now. I mean, we're a jumbo lender. Of course, our compensation plan's set much lower. Like that's just a different market. We're all different. We're meeting the needs of the United States of America coast to coast, right? Like we're
Right.
talking
Right.
about a very different place. So, it's a I'm into mentorship, but everyone has to do something. Christians really deeply involved in the Boys and Girls Club locally, but we all are doing something. So
And that's all we can do. You know what I mean? And there's no right or wrong. And that's the only wrong is not doing anything. Let's just be honest here. So if it is, as you say, picking up trash on the side of the road, and you're doing it for the right reason, then that's great. If you guys can start your own foundation, that's great. You know what I mean? But you can't be judgy about it. Just know that you're giving back to the community. So, but you did bring up something here, which is jumbo loans, and we should probably talk a little mortgages here.
yeah.
So you guys do a lot of jumbo loans. How did you guys get into that market?
You know, we're not going to ever like say like, oh, this is our circumstance or now. The one thing that we did when we became established in the Orange County community was we got to know our market. And so the one thing is that if you want to really be, make the claim that you're an expert in something, you better be willing to give up the business. So something really interesting that happened for many years was Christian and I would align, and in jumbo before some of the bigger guys in our industry that are non-wholesale, you
Hmm.
had to do jumbo loans brokered with someone who's wholesaling, just because from a competitive standpoint, the pricing wasn't there, not even close to compete. So
Right.
it kind of began as an effort of do what's necessary to win the customer, right? Like we have partners that we still stay in contact with. Now we're leaning less because we love that we can do released or non-released loans with our own partners, and there's jumbo options now with I think UWM and Finance of America are like two really awesome options that like really with those two you're winning. But in the jumbo community, I will say that it's not it's not wealthy people. I want to like really like reiterate that. I think sometimes we think like we forget that like $1 billion, like a billionaire, and even someone worth like north of $50 million net worth or north of 25 million, none of those people are getting jumbo loans. I want to make sure everyone understands that. So to begin with, it's like know your market. I got really in depth. If anyone wants to refer back to the brokers are better playbook for jumbo, I got very in depth And I really kind of presented that as something that just won't age, I guess. Like I try to really present it as a way to like a playbook that doesn't that's not specific to a time, like I don't really get into like rates or programs specifically,
Right.
but more what's the mindset. It's regular people, but they are savvier. Yeah, they have access to technology. They have access to B of A's portal right on their website. They log in to show you proof of funds, and what's B of A going to hit them with internally is a rate quote from their jumbo team, right? So you are competing on a very very level playing field. What I would call it, um, I call it level because I don't think they have an advantage over me. I think I'm capable of winning regardless, and we do win because we win with service. We win with sometimes even the rate, but educating people on the rate, meaning
Mhm.
sometimes you need to have $250,000 of reserves if you want to get that better interest rate. I mean, you would be surprised, but in our market, a lot of the people buying in jumbo, $822,000 loan amount doesn't even get you in a suburb. It doesn't even get you in a community like Costa Mesa or cities in Long Beach or cities in Ventura County. You can even go to NorCal, and there's places where you can't get a loan. Even Riverside, anything over $848,000, right? There's some great communities to live in non-high cost areas that are already jumbo at $600 or $700,000. So just know that we early on aligned with retailers, and we would say, look, I know who the best retail lenders are, and I can name my competition by name. So what I learned in the NCAA was the only way I can beat USC, the only way we're going to ever beat Cal Berkeley, the only, when we played, and I'm from Loyola Marymount, and we were ranked like fifth or sixth in the nation at the time. The only way we're going to beat UC Santa Barbara and these old time programs like UCI and all these teams is we have to know them. Now, if you're in a jumbo market and you don't know who your competition is and you don't know them, I mean, know them literally. Like, do you know them by name? Like, do you have conversations with them? I do have conversations with my competition. When I go to these big tournaments, sometimes my team was a little put off by it, but I would shoot the breeze with the two stars of USC or the two stars of UCLA. I'm like, I want to know them. I want to know how they think. I want to know
Right.
their weaknesses. I want to know like how they react to things, how they react in a conversation. It gives me an edge in the game. So we really do know our competition. We know the top guys at Citibank, Wells Fargo, and not even B of A. We don't even compete with them. They're not even there. But just say Wells Fargo and Citibank. Like those two teams. I know it's two or three of their top LOs, and I'll chat with them and say, I think I have a referral for you guys. And someone's like, wait a minute, like why would you send? Because my feeling is, if that customer knows that I'm the best option, even if I'm giving it up to a retailer because it just made sense to choose who I'm going to lose to, I choose that way. But that reinforces our community because guess what those guys can't do? They can't do about 80% of the loans they see.
Right.
So there's a reinforcement of upholding your community and knowing thy enemy. It goes back to stuff I'm telling you. Like you can't be scared of what you don't know. Like if I'm sitting here listening to CNN and you're sitting here listening to Fox News, that's a problem for both of us, like a serious
Right.
problem. So we got to get off that hamster wheel and start getting into something that's a little more, like has some substance to it, or we're not going to really be competing, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we operate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. QB, this is great. All right. So last thing that we always do on these podcasts to wrap it up is stage is yours. The stage has been yours the whole day, but the stage is yours right now. Um, what advice you want to give to the community, or what's something you want to tell the community?
Um, right now I'm reading a book by Jay Shetty, called "Think Like a Monk," and he had a good one for me. He said, "Don't be a savior," and it was kind of funny because I thought we're so used to as brokers, getting in this path of, or excuse me, in this, I guess you could say like a routine. We're in a routine of conditioning, right? Underwriter conditions, and we respond. we got to be really careful with that thought pattern because we tend to take it into everything else we do. Like it's like this pattern that we're in because we're conditioned and it's a good conditioning. Like when I played water polo, it's like you have to swim 17,000 yards. So my shoulders were conditioned to do this,
Right.
to make the arm motion. And now my shoulders are sagging because I'm conditioned to be at a keyboard all day.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's like so it's good to be conditioned, right? But guess what? My back used to hurt when I stopped playing sports and I would sit at my desk at work, my back hurt. My back never hurts now because I'm literally molded to my chair at my little battle station, ready to crank out some loans every day. The point I want to tell everyone is we have to all be conscientious if we really want to take ourselves to another level, that if we can break that thought pattern sometimes when we're dealing in other situations, personal life and that kind of stuff, we're going to be better off. In that book they say it, and there's another book, and I forget, but we can probably Google it and we figure out. But it's called the Tetris effect, where if I sit here and I play Tetris and I try to perfectly match those blocks in every time all day long, what's going to happen? You're going to start to find that you can't beat Tetris all the time. Sometimes those blocks aren't going to be stuck together perfectly well. So trying to get out of that Tetris effect mindset and just kind of getting more into the fabric mindset that we're here to uphold you and you're here to uphold us, and remembering that their market may be different. So let's take a minute to kind of take a deep breath and not react when someone says, well, your comp plan's too high. It's like, you know what? There's no right answer sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
you just got to take a step back and just say their market's different. Or this guy's MMI is huge because all he does is jumbo streamlines. Well, he's going to be dead in a year. It's like, why make that comment? Who cares if he's dead in a year? This year, he's a millionaire and he
Right.
helped a bunch
Right.
of veterans. What's the problem? So my feeling is that's what I would encourage everyone is, let's understand that diversity in our community is going to be better, and it's better if we proceed in a way that we can also find strengths in one another. Find
Yep.
strengths in the guys that are different than us, and that you're like, I don't know if I really see things the way he does. Just take a minute. Just take a minute. Just know that we're all here for the same cause. Would you rather them not be an aim? My dad says it all the time. He's like, do you want him to just not be on our team? Because he can go to the enemy, and then he's really a problem. It's
Right.
like
Right.
like let's keep him on our side, even if he's like like not the greatest to talk to. Hey, he has something he's doing different. He's helping us win. So that's all I would say. Try to we that we all try to do our best to kind of get out of that like routine hamster wheel of the conditioning.
Yep.
Hey, it's totally a cheat code. I love people that know how to condition fast. Believe me, okay? There's an LOA on our team that does it well, but I tell her, hey, when you go home today, make sure that you're not stuck in that with your daughter. Like don't take that home, or don't take that in other areas of your community. Sometimes you just gotta make sure that we're not talking to our family or our friends or our community the way we talk to an underwriter. And guess what? You're gonna be nicer to your underwriters if you do that at home. There's an actual benefit there. You're not gonna be, berating underwriters. That's not healthy. No one needs to do that. It doesn't help anything. They're doing their best. So that's all. I think that's from me to everyone else, from a guy who's intense, guy who has a very high wire, guy who talks a mile a minute. That's what I'm telling myself every day. Taking advice from my brother. Like Christian's the antithesis of what I just told you. Like of how I am, he's different. Cutberto Sr is different. But guess what? If you saw us, we don't hang out that much in real life. When we do, we have a great time. But as a team, there's a diversity in our opinion that makes us a very good corporate team. So why would we knock down the strength that is also a weakness, right? Sometimes that's always going to be the case. We're all here to uphold one another like a fabric. So that's it, Mark. I think that's all.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. Everything you said here. This was a really, really enjoyable podcast. I love your vision and everything, and I appreciate your time. I really do. I've known you for a long time now, and I'm glad. And once again, thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks, Mark, and keep interviewing great brokers. It's a really great thing you guys are doing for the community. So thanks a lot, Mark.
No, my pleasure. So Cubie, thanks for sharing your insights with us today. So, brokers, if you want to get caught up on all of our past podcast episodes, please head over to aimgroup.com/broker to broker. You can listen to all the broker to broker podcast episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can get podcasts, in all honesty. So, do me a favor, please subscribe, please rate our podcast, and leave a review. It helps us get the podcast out there and spreads the word that brokers are better. Once again, Cubie, thanks for being on today. This was a really enjoyable podcast.